Welcome to Dinner with a Side of Culture podcast, episode 3. For this episode, we approach the topic of people that have recently graduated or about to graduate from college and have decided to make Greensboro their home. The two guests we had, we originally did have scheduled for 3 guests, but ended up only having 2. We had another guest back out at the last minute due to getting sick. It is that time of year in winter where the temperatures here in Greensboro are all over the place usually. That's the case this winter as well. But anyway, our guests for this episode are Carly Dempsey, who is the marketing and outreach coordinator for Natty Greens Brewing, and Rebecca Harrelson, who is actually still currently a student at UNCG, but she is very active, involved in the art scene. She is involved in the Matter Factory here in Greensboro, which is basically a collective that is looking to open an art gallery, which she'll talk about during the podcast. And she's the creator of a blog called Sidewalk Stories, which really, I think, is great. We found out about it during the podcast, but excellent blog connected to what we're doing here. We're just talking to everyday people that you pass on the sidewalk and why they're in Greensboro, what they do with their life, and how we are connected.
What is the phrase that people say about getting out of the street and getting on the sidewalk? Isn't there some sort of
There's always that joke of when teenagers get their license, say, "Oh, better get off the sidewalk." I mean, there's that one. Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know if I'm talking about pedestrian manslaughter, but but you know, in a downtown setting, though, honestly, all jokes aside, in a downtown setting, sidewalks are where the conversations are supposed to happen. I think that's a big part of what makes a downtown what it is, because you're able to just run into people of all walks of life, people you may not expect to. And when you're in your car, it's such a point A, point B, you know, I feel like everything becomes more hurried. So it would make sense that sidewalks would be where stories would be told. Maybe taxi cab confessions might be another alternative, but that's for another podcast.
We had a great conversation with the two of them, and we talked not only about their choice to stay here in Greensboro after graduation, but the many ways in which the city has changed over the years and over their short times, Rebecca in particular, her short time here in the city, and ways in which we can connect. I mean, that's, again, what this podcast is all about.
And it's really refreshing that it's just a continued batch of new energy and people that want to be involved. Both of these women were extremely motivated to be active in the community and do cool stuff. And I'm just very happy to see that there is a continuation and a building precedent for that to take place more often in Greensboro.
I think Rebecca is a great example of the fact that we can have so much influence and change coming from people that have that youth and enthusiasm. And we are a college town. A lot of people forget that because I think so many of our college graduates leave. And she's an example of hopefully one that will stay.
And, you know, Carly represents a unique demographic as well. In my hometown of High Point, 95% of my friends had moved away and are moved away. And it seems, you know, in our conversation with her that a lot of her friends are here. And it's interesting she chose to come back to Greensboro, and especially working for Natty Greens. You know, Natty Greens serves a kind of a unique role in Greensboro as one of the originators of craft beer. And now it seems Greensboro is starting to really identify itself as a craft beer hub, if you will. And so,
matter of fact, the other day we did this podcast was the day that they announced the World of Beers is coming to Greensboro.
And I think Wise Man Brewer
was the same week. So, yeah, this will definitely be a future episode and future topic that we'll be talking about. But this is one of the first we preached it. And you're right, Natty Green's definitely a representation of something that was trying to make the city cool. I mean, honestly, just to put it that way. I was here when it first came out, and we had nothing like it before that. And definitely a major player and major part in downtown revitalization.
And I love when we talk about the and Carly was, instrumental in putting this event together, the Old Town Brown release party. I actually bought one of those tap handles from the bunker one night, the night we did the Create Your Block event, and I was pretty excited about it. I felt like I had a piece of history, honestly. It's cool to have that in a place that, I don't have a long history in Greensboro. I've obviously been coming here for a long time, being from High Point, but it's interesting to be able to find something that you can be proud of, like a piece of history in your own hometown. I think people in Greensboro tend to undervalue what we have here. So,
without a doubt. And for this episode, we don't have any corrections to make. The only thing I'd like to add is there's talk about Tate Street on this episode, and I did mention about the scene that existed on Tate Street back in the early 80s, where bands like REM and Black Flag were coming to play in Greensboro. It was a major part of the punk underground scene, and I didn't mention that because we talk about how much of an impact there could be if there was a legitimate venue here on Tate Street. So here it is, episode 3 of Dinner with a Side of Culture podcast. Thanks for listening.
So we're back for episode 3 of Dinner with a Side of Culture, and we obviously are starting to get a little tradition going here. We picked up some Bandito Burrito here on Taco Tuesday from Mendenhall, and thank you to WAG Studios for allowing us to host once again in your facilities and use your equipment. I got Jack Bonney here, and we have 2 awesome guests here tonight. We have Carly Dempsey and Rebecca Harrelson. They both have an interesting perspective and experiences with Greensboro, and they actually have something else in common. They both have spent time in Wilmington, with Carly going to school at UNCW and Rebecca being a native to Wilmington. So that will also give us the 2 different perspectives of Rebecca being a college student in Greensboro, with Carly being a native in Greensboro, and then vice versa in Wilmington. So we'll go ahead and get the night started. So Carly, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. I'm Carly Dempsey, and I was born in Greensboro. I went to school at UNCW and then was offered a job with Natty Green's Brewing Company in August and moved back here in the beginning of August. So I've been here for about 6 months now.
So Carly, did you have any experience working in breweries in Wilmington, or is craft beer something that's kind of been an interest to you, or is it a new passion? Tell us a little bit about that.
I never worked for a craft brewery in Wilmington, but I've always grown up around craft beer. I was actually 5 years old when I met Kane and Chris, the owners of Natty Greens. I met them at Old Town Draft House, which is obviously right up the street from where we are, when they were owning the business, and then they moved into our neighborhood, and we became really close family friends. Once I moved to Wilmington, I always was attracted to craft beer and never really drank domestic. I wasn't really drawn towards it. And then coming back here, it was just natural to fall back into something, and I've always known them. They've been close family friends, and I've known the brand since I was 5, so it was an easy step.
So has it been a positive transition coming back into Greensboro? And, growing up in a city, you kind of look at things in a different way. You don't really go out. You don't really see the nightlife side of things. So now that you're working and you're here again, and with Natty Greens being such a prominent brand in Greensboro, what has that experience been like, being out in the community and seeing it from a different perspective?
Well, growing up in high school, I never thought that I would go to college and come back to Greensboro. It was never really a plan of mine to come back to my hometown, especially since when I was in school in Greensboro, I didn't see the draw of it. I didn't see why people wanted to stay here. Then I went to Wilmington, and the job market was not very good, and I was pulled back here because of Natty Greens. It was the best option that I had at the time. But it ended up being a really good thing, because being back in Greensboro now, I've been able to experience it being legal and able to go out and do what young people do in Greensboro. Also, when I was in high school, which was 5 years ago, the downtown area, as well as a lot of the local vibe here, wasn't really built yet. It was still, there was the curfew downtown, and it was not really a safe place to go. Granted, I worked at Natty Greens as a hostess in high school, so I was down there often, but it doesn't have the same feeling that it does now. So coming back, I'm able to see that and experience more so than I was in high school.
Interesting. So 5 years ago, it's 2015, so that would have been 2010.
Mm-hmm. That's when I left for school.
So when I was a freshman in college in 2006, I was coming back. My sister moved to downtown Greensboro, and I was from High Point, and I'd never spent any time in Greensboro, and I remember kind of being excited coming down like Market Street, and you start to see the buildings and stuff and going out. And I feel like from my perspective that in like 2006, 2007, you know, that length of time, even to 2009, I feel like downtown had like I don't know, I feel like it was a little bit more of a young professional mix. Now I see it coming back a little bit, but I feel like it's a younger crowd downtown.
Now?
Maybe I'm just getting older.
Now?
Yeah.
It's a different crowd downtown. I think it's drawn a lot of young people, especially when I was in high school, I was 17, and when I went down there, it was a different world. I went to like the Lawndale bars and got in with my fake ID. So going downtown wasn't really it wasn't really an option because there was police presence and like it was clubs and stuff like that. I mean, you could go to like college night, but going to Wilmington, it's a whole different experience. And having those two comparisons while I was in college, I never anticipated coming back to Greensboro. But now that I'm back, it's very different. I mean, there's so many options for nightlife that appeal to so many different people.
Now, Greensboro seems to be a little bit more active in terms of a downtown than Wilmington. Would you agree, or?
It's different. Downtown Wilmington it's more like of a tourist attraction, I would say. People would go down there when they were coming from out of town. They wanted to go to downtown Wilmington. They wanted to go to the beach or downtown Wilmington. I mean, the nightlife in downtown Wilmington, I liked it. It kind of there's like dive bars in Greensboro, and there are like some dive bars in downtown Wilmington, and there's the beach bar, so there are two different aspects. But downtown Greensboro doesn't have the tourist draw yet, I don't think. It's more business than little shops and boutiques. I mean, it's getting there. It's definitely grown since I've left, but I would say that Wilmington has more going on.
And we'll go ahead and introduce Rebecca, and then kind of carry this conversation on, because, you know, we talk about Greensboro not really having that tourist appeal, but craft beer is starting to become something that will make Greensboro a tourist attraction. So let's introduce Rebecca Harrelson, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, so I'm Rebecca Harrelson, and I am a student at UNC Greensboro. I'm a senior. I'll be a super senior next year. I am a freelance writer here in Greensboro. I have a blog, Sidewalk Stories, which I'm trying to get out and about, and I'm also working on opening an art gallery in Greensboro called the Matter Factory with Nadia Stevens. So those are two main projects that I've been working on. I've been in Greensboro for 5 years now. Grew up in Wilmington and came to Greensboro for school. So it's definitely interesting to get the opposite perspective of someone who grew up here and went to Wilmington for school, because UNCW is definitely it's a really great school.
So I'm gonna come out of the gate and ask you something you probably wouldn't expect me to ask you, but we noticed on Facebook that you had worked at Chipotle at some point.
Oh yeah.
And
of all the things you are pulling from my Facebook, I'm glad it's that one. Okay.
I had a friend approach me not too long ago, and he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "I know you're really trying to do music stuff." He was like, "You should really contact Chipotle." He's like, "They support local artists." He told me that he can reach out to their media people and that they'll give bands free food while they're touring, and that they'll put money towards music.
I had no idea. I mean, I knew Chipotle is a really awesome organization because they do really amazing things with their food. It doesn't have a lot of chemicals pumped into it. Like, working there is really great. You definitely form a really awesome friendship. So I had no idea that they were like feeding bands. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Chipotle is kind of an interesting, and, you know, we've talked about in the past, and kind of the changing scene on Tate Street and just in Greensboro in general. And Jack and I observed when we were walking out of the podcast not too long ago that if you look at all the telephone poles on Tate Street, all that's left is Staples.
Yes.
But for some reason, you know, even though Chipotle's got that kind of clean, polished, kind of modern feel to it, for some reason, to me, it still fits. What do you think, Jack? You've been around here for a while.
Yeah, that corner right there where it's located used to be corner stores.
Yeah, I remember that.
And one was called The Spot. That was the last. Actually, something else that came out after The Spot. But anyway, they were a little run down. And I can definitely talk about when I first got to Greensboro, and this is going to date me, but back in '98 when I came to school here, and it was a completely different scene on Tate Street. It was not a super nice place to be, honestly. There was Definitely a big problem with panhandlers. I mean, there still is that on Tate Street because, they think college kids got money. But yeah, it was a scene that there was a lot more of that going on. And they actually put up around some of the brick walls that are around the trees that are on Tate Street. If you notice, there's gates around them that have spikes coming out of them. Those did not exist when I first got here, and that's where a lot of right around the bus stop is where a lot of panhandlers would hang out. So that was actually a big controversy when that came out because people thought that they were trying to push them away. But Tate Street, yeah, definitely has changed. There's a lot more chains on the street, such as, Subway, Jimmy John's, Chipotle. So it's good to have that mix, I guess. I would like to see a little more local businesses going on. It's all restaurants, too. That's another thing. It'd be nice if there was some retail shops going on there. And also, obviously, I thought that there should be a club there somewhere on Tate Street. Yeah, I think that would be perfect. There used to be a Christian rock club over here in the building that's underneath Los Cabos, the Mexican place. There used to be a Christian nightclub called the Salt Shaker. When I first got here, that was quite interesting. Yes, but that closed down soon after I got here. And there's only been one club on the street since then, and that was a building that's right across from the Sushi Republic. Mm-hmm. And used to be forever. It was Tate Street Billiards. It was a pool hall, and they used to have shows in the basement actually. And then after that, it became a club, college dance club. But there was a few concerts that would happen there, and I think it's something that's very much needed. But
it's also really different. I used to live on Tate Street. I lived on Tate Street for a year, so it's definitely really different. When you live on Tate Street, you have to, there's people all the time. It's constantly going. A little mini New York sometimes.
Yeah, I've lived on Tate Street for 10 years now.
Yeah.
So I can definitely talk about that.
It's definitely really interesting.
Especially when you're here during the summer and it's dead, and then all of a sudden come, late August.
Sparks right back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's kind of frustrating, actually.
Yeah, yes.
Especially when you have to park on the street and you lose those parking spots. But anyway.
So you two both have some history on Tate Street. So do you all buy into the whole rivalry between Coffeeology and Tate Street?
Oh, see, this is hard because I used to also work at Coffeeology, but I don't really go there that much anymore. I go to, Tate Street Coffee now. I, rotated. My freshman year, I was at Tate Street Coffee. Sophomore and junior year, I went to Coffeeology, and now I'm back. I don't know if that means anything about me or vibes that I'm sending off. I have no idea, but
so we kind of talked about Tate Street, and it's interesting, Carly. Growing up in Greensboro, did you ever have any reason to come to Tate Street at all?
Yes, I actually went to Tate Street Coffee once a week with a group of my girlfriends. We would come here once a week, and just to drink coffee and hang out. I think I did a project here at Tate Street once or twice, but I frequented Tate Street Coffee often, and then I think I went to the Street Fair Festival. Is that what it's called?
Tate Street Festival?
The festival?
Yeah.
I've been coming to that since it started when I was little.
I can say that's a neat day to be able to have half the street closed off and be able to literally walk down the middle of the street to the festival. It is a good celebration of the local alternative scene that exists on this street, for sure. There's people that come out of the woodwork that you didn't know existed.
No idea even existed
around here.
It's
yes.
true. It's good because it also pulls a lot of college students who wouldn't normally get out of the college bubble. So they get to witness a lot of different local businesses too.
It's kind of funny that Tate Street is so active and full of college students because we were kind of always kicking around that dilemma of the Greensboro scene of there seems to be a lot of young people you always hear that I'm broke, I don't have any money to spend, and we wonder if that's holding Greensboro back. So then on the same regard, do you all feel like there might be a gap in the way that we're marketing, the kind of target marketing demographics that we're growing Greensboro? Do you think that there might be a market that people are missing on the subcultures of maybe a 15 to 18 age group rather than the 18 to 25 age group that we all are kind of trying to target? I know Carly can't really talk about Natty Greens in that aspect because obviously 15-year-olds shouldn't be drinking, but from a perspective of retail or even music and art, do you think that there is a market there?
I would say there definitely is a market there. I think if you tie in college students with something that they can get behind, regardless, I mean, obviously money definitely plays a factor into it, plays a factor into what I do in my day-to-day life and the shows I go see. Do I go see more free shows than what I have to pay for? Of course. So if we had more community building closer to campus, I think it would help. We could keep maybe like getting it further and further away from campus year after year, and maybe pulling out students and getting them into downtown Greensboro and having a little bit more perspective on what the city looks like when you leave campus. I think if you gave students, maybe like juniors and seniors, maybe even freshmen and sophomore, the opportunity to like have a board where they wrote down all their ideas, and they had the backing and support of their community or professors or community organizers and artists, that they would probably do really amazing things. You just have to open that door for them, and hopefully they will take the opportunity when they're given it.
And Carly, you just recently came back to Greensboro, you said, in August of this year. So I'm sure you have several friends in town that are in different positions in their life, or some of your friends, they're going through the job seeking process. What is your kind of interactions with them and the success or kind of struggles they're having with getting a career started here and starting to make money and adjust?
I mean, I'm coming from Wilmington, where there was a zero job market. You had to know someone or be in an internship for a certain amount of years to get the job that was offered. So there would be 500 students competing for 30 positions. Coming to Greensboro, there's a lot more options for things for people to do. I mean, we have huge companies in Greensboro that even as a startup job, there's like plenty available. So I personally don't think that they are having a hard time getting a job. I think there's plenty to offer. They just need to go seek it. I do have some friends who are in jobs that they don't particularly want to have, but they also have the opportunity to go find something that they would enjoy more. And I think Greensboro offers that. But again, I'm coming from Wilmington, where there was the restaurant business, and that's the only business that was there.
It's easy to go ahead and get a job just to pay the bills and stuff like that, and try to find something better, try to find like your passion and your career on the side.
There's lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting. On our first episode, you remember Josh was talking about I would work 5 jobs if I had to, just to be able to continue playing music, because we talked about essentially kind of some of the traps that you can fall into when you do start to take some of those jobs, because like bartending and some of those service jobs, the money it comes so easy that it would be a hard transition to go from when you can make $500-$600 in a night to where you get an 8 to 5. It takes you a whole week to make that much. And so yeah, that's an interesting topic. And so Jack, you've worked in radio. You were the station manager here at WAG for almost 10 years, right?
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. And so then from here, you moved on to radio station at Winston-Salem State?
I did, yes. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was very spoiled. I never had to really go through that struggle after graduating. I mean, all I had was about 6 months of looking for a job after graduating, and then the position here at UNCG for WAG general manager position. Basically, it's something we wrote up my senior year, and we were told at the time there's no money for this position, and then all of a sudden there was money to test it out, and I was in the right place at the right time and got it. And lucked out by the age of 23 getting a job that was pretty nice with university benefits and a state employee and all that.
That's awesome.
And so then when I lost this job due to budget cuts, when the position was cut, that definitely sort of hit me. And I realized I didn't have to start from scratch, because I obviously had this background of being a general manager at a college radio station. And of course, took that and tried to apply for radio stations really across the country, and didn't have much luck, and decided to go with another passion of mine, which is vinyl records. And I opened up a record store, CFBG Records, Center for Better Grooves on Chapman Street, and then all of a sudden got a job offer at Winston-Salem State University to be the program director for their jazz and NPR station. And I've stuck with that for 2 years, and realize now that I do want to pursue CFBG full time and do other creative things like this podcast. So it's been nice to have that freedom. It's tough for me to say my experience based on comparing when I hear of my friends that struggled for years to get jobs. I had that luck out where I was just in the right place at the right time. And that's a lot of what life is. Timing.
Yeah.
Timing. That's my dad saying, timing what the world is based on.
Networking, I feel
Yes.
like, is also really great.
Mhm.
You gotta know somebody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But we talked about this last week. If you pursue your passion, something's going to eventually come of it. And again, you're going to get something out of it. And I assume that's probably, Rebecca, talk a little bit more about the Matter Factory and then also a little bit about your blog. But Matter Factory, what it is, and how you came about the idea and what you want to do with it.
So the Matter Factory, I was pulled into it. It was kind of one of those things where I was at the right place at the right time as well. It was just offered to me in a way. A friend of mine, Nadia Stevens, who is the director of the Matter Factory, she texted me one day, and we've known each other for a couple of years, but weren't super connected. And she texted me one day and asked me to get coffee. She said she had a project she really wanted me to work on with her, and she wanted to pull me in. So we sat down, and she was like, I have this idea. I just did the New York City Art Practicum through UNCG, which is like a program where some artists go to New York and they have a mentor. And during that time, apparently it was very eye-opening. New York City's very expensive. She had a lot of different ideas about what it was to be an artist, and she came back and she had this idea for the Matter Factory, and she pulled me in. And I originally came on as literature director, but now I'm definitely like her right-hand woman, we like to say, because we're trying to start this art gallery, and eventually it will be a tangible space in Greensboro. Right now we're in the fundraising stages. We're wanting it to be this space where artists can come in. They don't have to have a degree. They don't have to have a lot of backing, but if they produce art that we really want to support or latch onto, then we sit down and we talk to the artist and we show it in the gallery and places for bands to perform, and maybe eventually have some studio space for artists to rent out. I think Greensboro is a really amazing city, and the past year I've been really latching on to this idea of Greensboro and what it can be and what it needs to thrive. And I think the arts is a really amazing program, and I think it's something that would help Greensboro a lot and help other artists and activists and community organizers all. So she pulled me in on that, and then maybe a day later we were getting interviewed by Triad City Beat, and they were like, so you're starting this business? That's so crazy. You're both really young. She's a senior art student. I'm sociology and English, and they were just like, you guys are so young to be starting up an art gallery. And that's when it kind of came into fruition that we were actually trying to start a business, and it was a little daunting, but really exciting. I mean, I think the past couple months have been really great. We have support from New York City to Greensboro. We have amazing backing, and Create Your City is definitely one of our allies for sure. So I'm excited to see what happens in 2015 with the Matter Factory. I think also meeting a bunch of different people through the Matter Factory kind of helped hone in my networking. It made me think of Greensboro in a very different light, being a sociologist and wanting to be a journalist, tying all those things in together. And that's basically, I guess, when my blog idea happened, and I wanted people in Greensboro to know more about what was going on, who their neighbors were, who they were passing on the street. And that's how I got the name Sidewalk Stories, because I don't know my neighbors. I don't always know the business owners and what their story is, but they all definitely have a story. And I feel like if we're going to try to make Greensboro a better city, we need to know who we're connecting with. So that was the main idea of my blog, is to try to tie connections in with artists and professors and business owners and homeless people on the street and everyone under the sun, really, who wanted to talk to me.
And we were talking before we got on, we were enjoying those delicious tacos, that you have decided that you're going to be staying in Greensboro.
Yeah, so I can't really remember if I decided this before the Matter Factory fell into my lap or after. I like to think it was before. A writer at Triad City Beat, Eric Ginsberg, he and I met up for coffee one night. We were talking, and he was telling me all these different things that I didn't know about Greensboro, and he was saying to me, you've been here for 4 or 5 years, and you are just now seeing this whole other side to Greensboro, and can you imagine if you stayed here a couple years after college, who the people you would know, the connections you would make, the articles you could write in a way. So that definitely got me thinking about staying here in Greensboro. Then the Matter Factory happened, and I have such faith in what we can do with that. So I feel like I will definitely be staying in Greensboro after I graduate. And I will be working on building up the Matter Factory with Nadia, and hopefully being able to have a hand in telling people stories that are passing through Greensboro and who live here, for sure.
Awesome.
I mean, I definitely can relate to your experience with the Matter Factory, and it's kind of interesting. You know, the first podcast with Jessica Arenas, she got connected with me through someone that came to dinner with us out of culture and told her when she moved here to reach out to me, and we kind of connected on social media before we met. And then before she met me, she actually came to Hop Fest. And so there's been a few people like that I've kind of worked through the process that kind of inadvertently was created. And similar to you as well, I like definitely remember meeting you and Nadia because I was at what's the Rock the Vote that you did at Green Street?
Yeah.
And you had that box,
We
the
had the
Fortune.
booth. Yeah.
I still won't forget that. I still remember that.
Show
We're
of
trying
hands.
to do like,
Sure.
show of hands. It was at Green Street, because Una, I think, played as well, which was a great concert. It was awesome. Yeah, we had the Put Your Fortune In. We had different people behind the little cardboard made box, and it was quirky and weird, but people really enjoyed it. Kids liked it. Adults liked it. We had our cards, our stickers and handouts, and then we had locally made artists who just wanted to free give us their work, and we put them on postcards with our information on the back, and they got to put their name on art and hand it out to a bunch of different people in the community, so it got their name out there. But yeah, we were giving those out as well. That was a fun event. Yeah.
And it's similar with Carly. I actually met you on the rooftop of the People's Transit double-decker bus. So how did you end up on the double-decker bus?
My friend Julia actually told me that there was this London bus that was driving around Greensboro, and my boyfriend at the time was a believer that Greensboro was really boring compared to Wilmington, so I was like, hey, let's go jump on this London bus. I don't really know where it goes. And so we ended up on the London bus and rode around on it to Lawndale bars and then back downtown to Natty Green's. But that was fun, and that is where we met.
Sounds fun.
It was fun. It was lots of trees and wind and booze on London buses.
When was this?
This had to have been like August, September.
Yeah, I think
This
you had
was
literally,
early
it was
on.
like one of your
That's
first
awesome.
weekends.
It
I
was
think
one
you
of our
said.
first. I was really trying to convince him that Greensboro was fun. And he did. He thought it was really fun after that.
That's good.
You said it right there. People using that, I even hate saying it, green's boring.
I haven't heard that
why,
yet.
Oh, you never heard that?
No.
Okay. Well, I actually think that is a phrase that is dying down. It was
Good.
definitely when I first got here in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was something people said, and it had some truth to it for sure. I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I guess that's that question is would you say, is Wilmington considered more fun because it's got a beach and the beach to it, or would you say? Why do you think he thought that? I know you don't need to speak for him, but
Well, he's told me enough times.
Okay.
You really can't be living at the beach and your weekends you spend at the beach, and when you don't have afternoon classes, you spend it at the beach, and it's a lifestyle, which is completely different from the lifestyle in Greensboro. And then there is I think he mostly missed the going out life because there's a strip in Wrightsville Beach that you call the beach bars, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 6 bars on a block. And everyone that you know, who's your friends, goes to the beach bars if those are the type of people. Whereas you come to Greensboro and it's more spread out. I think that's why he thought the London bus was pretty cool, because it connected everyone and you were able to get from one point to another point without having to take a cab. That was what he was struggling with, that he could go one place on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and see everyone he knew in Wilmington and go to 6 different bars within walking distance of each other. Whereas it's a little more difficult down here.
is there a nickname for Wilmington? Because we're the Gate City. What's the nickname? Do you know?
Port
those?
City, right?
Is it Port?
Yeah.
City?
I think
Port
it's the
City.
Port City.
Yeah, I call it Wilma.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of them. Wilma, and I don't know. I think there's another one too.
I think it's the main one's the Port City.
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
like
Gate
the
City.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wilma is just what you call it when you live there and you're asking your sister if you're going to Wilma this weekend. I don't know.
I never use that one.
Really? I feel like it's kind of ridiculous. I think that's why I like it.
Well, people at UNCW call it the dub.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do have a T-shirt that says the dub on the back of it.
I've
The
heard that
dub.
too. Yeah.
Yep, mine's too big for me, unfortunately.
I was never a fan of the dub,
Yeah,
that nickname.
yeah, I didn't get it.
Like W.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of clever. Maybe not.
I do like, the fact that you pointed out, because People's Transit that was what it was about. It was about, because Greensboro is, and I think it's an advantage for Greensboro, but it's also a disadvantage. We have such strong little pockets, but also, like you said, why are you going to venture out somewhere that you're not comfortable or that you're not used to, and then you have to pay $10 in a cab to go there, and you have no idea what it's going to be like once you get there. And because Greensboro is in a transition period, I would say, where 250,000 people, but what really percentage of that is young? I've heard 50,000 between the ages of 18 and 25, but I don't know. I haven't seen proof of that necessarily on any given night. But, it also, I feel like one of the biggest things, and we talked about this before, is, we get divided. And we talked about whether that was just a product of, our population size, that you can only have so much going on in Greensboro. But we also think that there's just so many, not only are we divided by location, but there's so many different types of people as like little pockets of people. So how do you think we can kind of get everyone to kind of come together and not feel like we have these territories that we kind of stick? Like, there's the Walker Elam groups, there's the College Hill Westerwood Shakes groups, there's the downtown group, there's the Speakeasy Tap Room group. So it's just
New York City Pizza Group.
Yep, NYP. Yeah. And that kind of plays into, there's a lot of factors that bring people together. I mean, and you see similarities. It's sort of like, I think about App State. When App State won the national championships and we beat Michigan, it went from people not wearing shoes and your professors spewing like some crazy conversations in class and people tight roping in the quad, to my senior year, you saw more croquis and rainbows and Lacoste shirts, and it was like a complete switch, a complete change. And then you started to see that divide happening. And the older you got, you went to different bars than you did when you were younger, and there were some places that people felt comfortable and uncomfortable. I'm kind of an exception to that rule. I feel comfortable in a lot of different places, but one of those deciding factors that you see differences in people is tattoos. And we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Tattoos kind of seem to be a what's the word, taboo? You think they're taboo
Are
still?
they taboo anymore?
No.
That's the question. Are they anymore? Because
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we could ever really answer that question fully, but I have so many thoughts floating around in my head. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of tattoos. I have a lot of tattoos that are showing. My sister, every time I get a new one, she always says, "God, you're so unemployable. You're not going to be able to get a job." But what I normally think when she says that is, I don't really want a job if they're going to discriminate because I have something on my arm. None of my tattoos are rude or vulgar or anything like that. They all have I like to think, a pretty good meaning behind them. So if my employer wanted to ask me, I would be able to tell them right then and there what they were about. I guess I don't know. I would like to say it depends, but I mean, I think that we're going to hopefully see in a long time, maybe some doctors and some lawyers repping some tattoos. I think that'd be pretty great.
I know there's a police officer in Greensboro that's got a sleeve.
Yeah. And I also think
tattoos.
It's really cool when especially in the winter, when I'm covered, someone talks to me, or an adult talks to me, a professor, if I am in a job interview and I take off my jacket and they see that I have tattoos, they sometimes are just kind of like taken aback a little bit, or they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you had all of those." And I like that because I feel like I'm kind of breaking down the barrier of what they think someone who would have tattoos is like, or what they thought I was like before I took my jacket off. So I think it's kind of bending people's idea of what another person should be looking like and what they want to put on their body as art.
I think it's Mark Cuban. Whenever we've had a lot of racial issues that have been in Hot Topic as of late, more recently with the police situations. And, I guess Mark Cuban originally made his comments right around the same time as Trayvon Martin, where he was talking about everyone has their own biases. If you see a guy with completely to the skin, shaved head, and tattoos on their neck.
Big beard.
Big beard. You might cross the street. And I think that, you know, one of the coolest experiences for me was when I went to college, and I had a friend, and I guess now, I don't know if this term really exists, but I had this guy that was emo, and, you know.
That makes sense. I know what it means.
It was so interesting to me that he and I became really good friends, and I was like the most clean-cut, like, small county school, like popular clique, just bullshit. And I meet this guy, and we become really
Frat
good
boy.
friends.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
No, it's
And
true.
I love the fact that he and I were able to become friends, and that was probably after freshman year. That was probably one of my biggest like personal achievements and accomplishments. And now it's like I'd say 75 to 80% of my friends have a large amount of tattoos.
Yeah,
and I have tattoos.
I definitely think it's growing. I think that's funny that you said that, because it makes me think of a lot of my friends. My freshman year, I hung out with a lot of guys who were in fraternities. I met a couple girls who were in sororities, and they were all really great. And there are some things I dislike about Greek life, but I think that there are some really great aspects of it as well. But it was cool because they were all very clean cut, pink and green wearing, like, you know, very stereotypical what you would think a frat boy would look like and what you would think a sorority girl would look like. And it was cool because whenever I would befriend them or they would befriend me, or however we got to know each other, they would like find out that I was gay, and they would be like, oh my God, you're the first gay friend I've ever had. This is so amazing. And it's cool because it was kind of like you befriending the emo. So I guess I'm the emo person that they're
You're
befriending.
the gay friend.
Yeah, so I'm like there. But it was cool because you could tell that they never really had that like culture in their life or whatever it was. It was just kind of cool.
Well, that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I have a good friend that recently moved to San Francisco, and one of his best friends there is gay.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was football, like one of the most homophobic people you ever meet. And it was so interesting that when I went out there to visit him, and he told me before I came out there, he was like, you know, I've made friends with this guy. He's like, because he was worried that I was going to like judge him, like, oh, you went out to San Francisco, what happened to you? But I've just always grown up in a household where my mom taught me to be very accepting of everybody.
Awesome.
And including when I was a kid, she taught at inner city schools. She would take me down to the projects, and I would like watch movies in the projects. And my dad was a little weary about it, but like honestly,
if only that happened now.
Yeah, I mean, those are the experiences that changed me. And yet, I would love to know what it's like in public schools now. Because
I would not like to know. God, I would probably be really sad, and yeah, that'd be rough.
Jack and I actually did a documentary screening at Carolina Theater back in last winter.
No, it was April.
Mm-hmm. Our friend Molly O'Keefe and her parents did a documentary, and they're from Pasadena.
Oh, yeah.
And Pasadena has the largest amount of charter schools in the United States. And they basically use 50 videographers. What was it, like 30 schools that they followed?
Wow.
For 24 hours?
Yeah. I'm trying to think the total amount of students that they followed. I
think it was 28 students,
okay.
50 videographers, and maybe like less schools than that.
Yeah,
but it started from their like parents coming in the room, waking them up, and then like
their
them
entire day.
Entire day.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's called Go Public, and now the basis of it was showing how they've been able to reintroduce, and they're fighting for funding for arts, and they followed sports teams, people going to sports practices, going to school board meeting. But I just read there's a magazine we have at CoLab that was talking about a school in San Francisco, and they're talking about how schools that are reintroducing arts are actually having better test scores in math and science based on arts.
Yeah, I definitely am not a believer that art should be cut at all. But maybe that's kind of obvious.
It comes with it.
Yeah.
I love that, we talked about Beautiful Losers last time because we did the screening, which you were at, and you were going to be on last week, and we were able to bring you back this week, and we kind of talked about that. But you remember the point, and I can't remember which guy said it, but he was like, when you're a kid, your parents give you like crayons and a coloring book, or you just like to scribble, and he's like, the older you get, it's like everyone teaches you to stop doing that. They want you to start coloring lines, and then pretty soon they don't want you coloring at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think people drop and pick up what they want, and they find their passions along the way, hopefully. That documentary was really great. I think when I was there, I wrote down a couple quotes from the movie, but I can't remember what they were, and I don't know where I wrote them down, but I know that's definitely a documentary I know a lot of my friends who are artists really enjoy. And it was just kind of funny. It's like a pretty funny movie. Lots of the guys in there and women are pretty sarcastic, which I can appreciate.
Yeah, I think you have to be as an artist. You
Yeah.
know, you have to realize that, it's not going to be a get rich quick thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, Nadia Stevens, the director of the Matter Factory, she's working on trying to find a job right now, and it's really hard. And her biggest fear is that she doesn't want to get stuck doing a job that she really hates for a long period of time just to be able to work on the Matter Factory.
Right.
But that might be what we have to do.
I would have to, if I were to give you advice, because I'm
Do it.
hopefully entering into a period of, and I don't want to jinx myself, but I see some positivity, some light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm going to tell you, I've struggled very, very hard. I've never lived the way I've had to live. Literally, I don't know from day to day whether I'm going to be able to afford food the next day.
Hard.
And I really every dollar I spend is tough.
Yeah, it's
And
accounted
it's scary.
for.
And I have so many people that have get involved because people get really interested in what I'm doing and they want to jump in full force. And then once they see what it really takes and they start to see how much work that I have to put in and what I've done, and then they're like, I don't understand. You just put 80 hours a day for 3 weeks and then 10 people showed up to your event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that. I would never do that. That's stupid. You need to do this or you need to do that. But I can honestly tell you, no matter what I've done, whether it was successful from someone else's point of view or successful from my point of view, I have never done anything that I truly put my heart and my hard work behind that another door hasn't opened.
It's true.
And I've worked my ass off, and I see it starting to come to fruition where I'm starting to get opportunities. So I went and cleaned a guy's entire warehouse almost completely for free just to learn from him. I've worked at a farm. I have cleaned, collected eggs. I have taken cows to be butchered. I have killed turkeys. I have bartended. I have done any number of valet, any number of things to get by. And now now I can't do no wrong. Even the valet's starting to do successful.
But now you're so well-rounded too. Yeah, which is great.
So
you're able to be put in situations, and then it automatically just kind of works.
So don't give up, and don't be afraid to take a job that you hate because it's like we've talked about.
It's temporary.
Yeah, exactly.
You have
And if
to
you
have that
really love it,
mindset.
hopefully it'll push itself to the forefront soon enough.
Well, the saying that I live by every day is, live now like no one else would want to, so that you can eventually live like no one else can. And that's what carries me through every day.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's an interesting segue into something that I think both you can talk about, but Carly in particular, with your job, is how to get people out to some of these events that you're doing and these initiatives that you're doing. So what would you say, and it's different, I know, in the craft beer industry, but what would you say are some of your most effective marketing techniques that you use there? I know you've only been there since August, so it might be
right. So we've been playing around with things. I mean, it is my first job as well, so I'm learning as I go. I mean, we had an oyster roast back in November, and it was the first event I ever planned, and it was one of the first events for Natty Greens, which is surprising that we actually made profit. All of our other events, we've always lost profit. And it was basically, we don't have a marketing budget, so it was all social media marketing, word of mouth, just between myself getting people that I knew to come out, and then Kane and Chris talking it up and putting it all over social media. I mean, we didn't have any media partners in it. I sent press releases to some people who ran it, and then we hung posters and banners, and that was basically it. Moving forward, I think as the craft industry gets more and more saturated, it will take more marketing to get people to these events, especially with other breweries opening in Greensboro. I mean, it's a really good thing that they're coming to Greensboro, like Gibbs and Pryor, and now Wise Man's coming to Greensboro, because it gives us more validity as a craft beer, as a brewery in Greensboro. So we're really excited about that, but I mean, then comes challenge of, well, why should someone come drink at our tap room instead of at Gibbs tap room? And it's not like we want there to be competition, but it comes with it. So I think just right now our main focus in marketing is getting our story across and making sure that we're tying ourselves to things that have the same values as we do. So we tied ourselves to the NC Coastal Federation for the oyster roast, and they go out and make sure that their waterways are clean on the coast, and that was something that we really felt was important to us. And now for another event we have coming up in April, we're partnering with Second Harvest Food Bank in Greensboro. And that's another thing that we just want people to see, that we are doing these events because we want you to come and have fun. But another marketing aspect of it is we are giving back to these organizations, and they kind of have a voice for us as well.
Which is awesome. Not many places around here do that.
So that's kind of, we're going a way around it, kind of getting our feet wet, figuring it out. It's definitely hit and miss and learning, because marketing is not cheap. We're trying to find the cheapest and best way to do it.
You were actually at their event when they re-unveiled the Old Town Brown, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're at Old Town?
Yeah, it was cool. I'm not a beer drinker. I'm trying to hop on the train. It's taken me a couple of years, obviously. But I went with Eric from TCB, and he was covering it. And I think it was like the first 50 people got
tap handles.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it went really well. I met a lot of people. It's cool that you mentioned that, because I don't remember who it was that was talking to us. We were talking to someone about Greensboro as a city and how it's really interesting that the surrounding cities like Winston and Raleigh and all of those places are doing so well. And the guy who was talking to us was talking about trying to think of Greensboro like when you put it's either like lobsters or crabs in a pot when you're cooking them, and they try to get out, but they don't like form a ladder to help each other out. They like literally climb on top of each other to tear each other down. Yeah.
So every crab for himself.
Yes, exactly.
Or herself.
Yeah. So they're all trying to get out, and he segued to, he thought it was really interesting that there is a lot of competition that comes between a lot of businesses here in Greensboro, and I think he was saying, he was thinking, and I agree with him, that it kind of hinders businesses, and especially local businesses, from, I guess, forming these links within each other and building everyone up at the same time, rather than being like every man for himself kind of thing. So he was saying that he really hoped that in 2015 Greensboro would start trying to help each other out and talk about each other and give each other plugs and like help each other out, and trying to have those networks of communication where everyone can try to build Greensboro up as a city, because we all live here, and try to get more people in rather than every business for himself too. So I think
the craft beer industry is actually probably an opposite of that strategy, because I think that craft beer industry all work together because y'all are all kind of in the same fight or the same cause, right? So
yeah, I mean, I know that the owners of some of the breweries who have come to Greensboro have called Kane and Chris for advice, which has been really good, because we don't want bad beer to come to Greensboro. We want good breweries to come to Greensboro. Mm-hmm. But I definitely agree, it's more competition than collaboration.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just for breweries, but I mean, you guys are doing the community give back thing, which is great. If more people did things like that, it would be such a better city.
Just seeing it from, I only have the perspective of Natty Greens, but bringing myself outside of Natty Greens, it's hard to see synergy in Greensboro.
Yeah.
It's very low.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of groups coming together for the benefit of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think Greensboro is doing good things.
Yeah. I think we're on the right path, hopefully moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, if you have to search, but once you find like the right avenues, there are ways to go. Like the Greensboro CVB just had an attractions meeting last Tuesday, and any attraction, so like Kersey Valley was there, the Greensboro Science Center was there. Obviously, I was there, a lady from Red Oak was there, and a plethora of other organizations in Greensboro came together, and we talked about events that were going to be happening for the year. And I think that's just one step in creating the synergy. Yeah. It's just, you have to kind of go out of your way to find those things.
No, that's true. That's definitely true, especially also with like activist groups here. There's so many young people who really have such like, they're so passionate about certain activities, and they're activists for either racial issues or housing segregation issues or anything in those realms, and you have to search to find them. But once you find them, you're like, how did I not know about all of these groups who are doing such amazing things? And you try to think, if everyone knew about this, so many more people would be on board, and we could all come to each other's events, and it would make so much more sense. We could all just support each other.
There's definitely an issue with getting the word out, I think.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things happening, but you don't hear about it.
But sometimes it just...
You have no clue.
Falls short.
That even happens with us. I mean, people are like, why didn't you tell me that was happening? And we're like, well...
We tried.
It's there.
Yep.
Well, these new Facebook rules, too, are really hurting if you're a business.
I just learned about this. I was interviewing a local musician, Alan Peterson, and he was telling me how he would share something, and he has, like, a lot of likes, a lot of friends on Facebook, but he would see that only, like, 45 people or 35 people were, seeing it or something like that, and it's because...
The algorithm.
They knock down who's going to see it, so you pay more money. Is that how it goes?
That's what they want.
Yeah. I think there's an algorithm that they change every few years, but they want people to stay on Facebook, but they want you to do certain things on Facebook. Like, they don't want lots of pictures, but they like links that are linking to other things. I don't know. I haven't figured out the whole algorithm, but
I think it's probably going to deter people from hanging out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or at least trying to conduct business on Facebook.
Right. They say that was one of the complaints they were getting, that people said they were getting bombarded with business requests and promotions, and they really wanted to keep it more personal and friend-based and family-based.
See, I kind of like using Facebook as like a networking tool.
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
really
Yeah, me too.
Exactly.
I like Facebook for that purpose. Now, especially like suggest friends. Why did they put that on there if they didn't want you? What are you suggesting friends for other than like opportunities or likeness? You know, you're not.
It's true.
So that seems.
I
like
mean,
counterintuitive.
all of us, business-wise, I'm sure we can appreciate it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks because it's not like really getting in people's faces. It's like halfway getting in people's faces.
People have to look for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
You gotta dig.
You have to like go and follow people. Now I try to make sure that I go and like you have to click a button. I have no idea. And
Like
that's when you
page.
you have to like the page and then you have to follow them. So it's like, it's too complicated.
That's kind of why we're starting, this podcast and Live from the Biltmore, is that we realize that we need to do something different to expand our audience. And that's really, honestly, the Live from the Biltmore is what, being in San Francisco, my buddy was really amped on Joe Rogan Experience, and I listened to that, and I was really hesitant to listen to Joe Rogan because I just thought that he was going to be kind of a douchebag from the Fear Factor kind of host role, but he is actually pretty intelligent.
Is that who that is?
You know Joe Rogan?
I didn't know that's who he was until you said that. Not that I watched a lot of Fear Factor, but
UFC fighter, but like he brings cool guests on there, and they have some interesting conversations. But it's the YouTube channel, like the Live from the Biltmore, and realizing why like Google bought YouTube, and YouTube is tied in with your Google Plus, which is tied in with your Gmail, and you can get GChat, which you don't really think that you would need another form of communication, but Google Hangout, GChat.
Yeah.
I find it, my buddy hounded me to do it, and I just didn't understand why, but it's less distracting than a text because you can be sending emails and surfing the web. It kind of pops up at the bottom. You can type and minimize it, and you're right back to what you're doing, rather pulling your phone out, and then you're probably going to check your Instagram, check your Facebook.
As a writer, I wish all of my text messages automatically just popped up as comments on the bottom of my screen because that would be so much quicker.
Do you have a Mac?
No, I need to get one.
Okay, because you can do that
like
on Mac.
Forward them. Yeah.
You have iMessage
after college.
On the Mac. Yeah.
I was hoping my laptop waits to die until then.
Download Google Chrome. You can get GChat as a plugin, and it'll actually sit on the bottom of your screen. It'll attach to your browser, and it'll be like almost like AIM. I don't know if you all had AIM, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to know. I mean,
We're not that young.
I was like the first generation, like where it's kind of we went from dial-up to Wi-Fi.
I remember dial-up. You got mail
I was
sound.
on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good. I kind of miss it. You got to do so much while it was loading. Brush your teeth, make breakfast, walk the dog.
So, going back to what Carly said about the Greensboro CVB meeting with the different attractions, and it's interesting because going back to kind of thinking about the People's Transit bus that we were talking about, one of the initiatives that I'm working on right now is to really increase public transportation. And the strategy that I'm currently taking, and we're going to discuss this more on next week's podcast, and we're going to have hopefully some people that can give us a varying perspective on that, but I'll kind of briefly mention it as it goes to the CVB. You're saying we want to try to do special event routes, and this is something I want to do with Hop Fest as well, where on days of events like at Greensboro Coliseum or City Market or Grasshoppers games, or like when you all did your Natty Greens concerts or with the Hams things, that buses will run express routes from the suburbs to downtown to help conquer some of the parking issues, and get somebody on a bus in a time when they can use it out of necessity or understand the need for it. They get a ride home. They don't have to pay for a
would
cab.
they be going back and forth?
That's what the hopes is, to get it to go and start with one route at a time, but run till 3 a.m.
Safer.
Yeah, 3 stops. We've got a route picked out that we think, and we're doing a lot of mapping and data, and hopefully by the next podcast I'll be able to give you more results. We're going to look at the economics, the average income of households along bus routes. We're going to rank the bus routes and see if we can find a comparison of the highest ridership of bus routes being in lower income areas, and if the lowest ridership is in higher income areas, then that actually will prove that we can take those routes that may have lower ridership in higher income areas, and we can make changes that remove the barriers that would prevent choice riders. So a choice rider is someone that can afford a car, may already have a car, but for one reason or another, they don't want to pay for the maintenance. They don't want the hassle of driving, so they would rather have public transportation. Whereas a need rider, they can't afford transportation. They need it for their basic necessities. So the other two factors we're looking at is we're going to map locations of DUIs and see if we can pinpoint certain areas of the city. So that would be another, motivating point for we need a bus route for late night. And then the third is age demographics. But I feel like events are the low-hanging fruit. One of the big ways that I feel like we can find funding, because obviously it's difficult to get public funding for things like this. You saw in the past election, a 1/4-cent sales tax for education was voted down, and a lot of people think that that's the option for transportation. My idea is that we do a second life business model. We reinvest money that would be used towards drunk driving prevention, underage drinking, like PSA signs and commercials, and increased police presence. And we would basically put that into alternative transportation, where it would normally cost $2.50 to ride a bus. We would charge $3.50 for the night bus. $1 would go back into PSAs, back into drunk driving awareness. $2.50 would go into the GTA. So therefore, the money that they might spend on a billboard could get their billboard and an alternative transportation. So just from the perspective of, we've talked about craft beers, we talked about Greensboro being divided. Do you all feel like this is something that you and your friends would use?
I definitely know students who would want to use this. So many of my friends would rather bike somewhere and go to a party, or bike somewhere and go to an event and drink there and bike back. And I think that's terribly unsafe. But then I guess their way of thinking is they're only putting themselves in danger rather than possibly harming someone else. Still scares the hell out of me, but I definitely know at least a handful of people who would definitely be down to do that, and they live in the communities that you would be polling, and they live kind of close to campus, but far enough that it would be problematic that they wouldn't be able to walk to a party or walk to an event or a community-raised thing.
What's some of the barriers that you all see for riding a bus? Would you go outside right now and get on a public bus?
I don't even know where the bus stops are. I know where they, when I'm driving down the road, I can see the sign. But if you were to tell me to walk out of this building right now and go to the closest bus stop, I would be lost.
I would know, but only, I think, because I was without a car for 3 years while I was in school, and I was living on Tate Street. So I worked 2 jobs on Tate Street, mainly because it was convenient. I didn't have a car. But I never really rode the bus during those 3 years. I somehow found a way around it. But when I was a freshman, we have that, I think it's like the heat bus that happens on campus, and it takes you like Walmart and the mall and stuff like that. So I know if it was easily accessible and if it was safe, yes, why not? Why, like, what would be the downside? And if it was helping out the community or getting us to go to more community engaged events, why would we not do it?
I think it's definitely fitted for people our age, though.
Yeah.
It's definitely a younger generation pool. Like, I don't see my parents getting on the bus with my younger brother. Like, that's, if they were going to Hot Fest downtown, they would drive their car downtown. They wouldn't get on a bus to go downtown.
It would be a good demographic to shoot for, like, it being safer, especially if you're drinking. That would be, I guess, the route to take, because like she said, it would be mainly for our age group of people.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good stopping point, and we'll be able to, kind of pick up this conversation. It was good to have you all's perspective on that, and we really appreciate all the commentary and all the stories, and you all sharing your viewpoint on life, Greensboro, craft beer, art, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carly Dempsey and Rebecca Harrelson. And Jack, you want to say anything to close this out?
Well, I just want to remind everyone that we keep the conversation going. And this is where I look at you. I will get this at create.
I've been saying the wrong Instagram handle. And,
Okay.
So
Let's get this right.
at create your city. So it's just at create your city. If you're on Twitter.
Do we get to plug all of our...
Sure.
No, I don't want to do it. I want him to do
You
it.
can follow us in the link below.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
In the bottom left-hand corner. Isn't that what they say on all the YouTube videos?
Yes.
Yeah. We should use this part.
All of our handles come up. Natty Greens.
Yeah, we like gesture and they magically appear. Yeah.
On our hands.
Yeah.
Spirit fingers.
Send in your videos. We're accepting them now. All right. Thank you.